look to insert that into the offense in the coming years.
Yeah, so for our final topic of the day, we're going to play a little game of higher or lower. It's pretty straightforward. We're going to give each other a stat for Arizona football this season, and we'll give our takes on if we think the Wildcats will exceed that stat or put up less than that stat. So we'll stay on the topic of tight ends for our first one here. Ryan, higher or lower 14 catches for Arizona tight ends this season? So that's 2 catches a game. Is that doable?
Yeah, I indeed think it is. I believe that tight ends are going to total around 20 catches, maybe a little even more this season.
Yeah, I think 2 catches is pretty doable. It's so funny because 14 catches is not a whole lot for Arizona, or it's not a whole lot, but for Arizona and its history of tight ends, it certainly is. Like like I said, that's 2 catches a game. I'm going to take the over here as well. I think I'm going to say that this team will hit the 14 catch threshold just because I honestly, again, I'll believe it when I see it, but I do believe in the Grant Gunnell effect. I think he'll make that offense a whole lot better. I think he's going to spread the ball around and, hold to his partnership of giving the ball to Bryce Wilmot, and he's going to feed him. I also really like Stacey Marshall, as we've already mentioned on this show like 5 times. But, I like the guys. I like Stacey Marshall. I like the guys behind him that the Wildcats have at their disposal. So I'm optimistic, but I think 14 catches is pretty doable.
Yeah, I got one for you now. Booby Curry, higher or lower 5 touchdowns?
I'm gonna say under. I think it's tough because to actually predict what kind of role Booby Curry is actually going to have. Like, we can predict that he's gonna have a breakout season, and I think he will. But realistically, I still think Jamari Joyner is going to be the wide receiver 1 for this team. He's going to be running all the routes. I also really like Brian Castile as some of the other some of the other wide receivers that Arizona has. So it's just so tough because 5 touchdowns in a 7-game span is a lot. Like, there's not a whole lot of room to have a bad game to hit that 5-game threshold. So it's tough to put up those numbers. Like I think if this was a situation where Booby Curry was the clear-cut number 1 wide receiver and there was nobody else that Gunnell can throw to, then yeah, I think 5 touchdowns is doable. But I think there's just too many options for Arizona. So I think Booby Curry is going to have a breakout year, but 5 touchdowns, I'm going to take the under on that one.
I'm going to take the over just simply because of the connection that they have. And I know it's a short season, but if Arizona is going to score a ton of points this year, they're going to rush the ball a lot. Don't get me wrong, but they're going to need a guy like Booby Curry to really step up, and especially in the red zone, score the football, because Jamari Joyner, he's going to score too, but I just feel like the gap between his level of talent to the guys below him is just the drop-offs. So I think he's going to be that guy this year.
I actually never really thought about that, but I think Booby Curry could be like an interesting little piece to use in the red zone, right? Like I see Jamari Joyner being the number 1 guy, and he's going to be running all the main routes, but you start getting to the red zone, you got to be a little creative, right? Like, we can see some jet sweeps with Booby Curry. He likes to think of himself as a big body receiver, so maybe we'll see some fades in the end zone. So who knows? Maybe they will feed Booby Curry. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's great for that in the red zone. You see, every offense needs a guy that can just jump up and catch that ball for you, and I think that's him.
All right, here's the next one. Higher or lower 30 points per game for Arizona's offense this season? We just finished hyping that unit up. Is 30 points achievable for this team?
I think I'm going to go under just because I think they're going to score 30 points some games, but I think they're going to have some games where they're going to score about 25 maybe in the 20s. But I think it's very close. But I just don't know if I can say every game they're just going to be putting up 35, close to 40 every week.
Honestly, I'm gonna go higher on this one. Arizona averaged 27 points per game last season, and that was with a somewhat dysfunctional offense last season, right? Like, all those wild and inconsistent, changes of rotating through Khalil Tate and Grant Gunnell. Like, despite all of that, they still scored an okay amount of points. Like 27, I think, was I think middle of the pack in terms of the Pac-12. I think that was right around like 6th or 7th. I don't exactly remember, but I expect this team to be a lot better this season with Ganell under center. I'll say it one more time. He fits that Noel Mazzoni scheme very well. I should get a T-shirt that says "fits the Noel Mazzoni scheme very well." That's how many times I've said that. But honestly, he's just very good at hitting his checkdowns and taking his yards that are given to him. I think he'll move the ball really well this season, and I'm all in on this offense this year. I think they'll score a ton of points this season. So give me the over on this one. I think they'll score more than 30.
Gotcha. My next one is running back Gary Brightwell, higher or lower, 650 rushing yards.
I'm gonna also take the under on this one as well. I think in a normal 12-game season, I think 650 yards is super doable. But with the season being only 7 games, I think that number is a little too high for me. Honestly, I think Gary Brightwell and the entire group of running backs is in the same position as the wide receivers. Where there's just too many mouths to feed. Like I think Arizona has a ton of running backs that are going to be used this season, and they're going to be used in the run game and the pass game. So, just that situation is just there's just too many mouths to feed. Like Gary Brightwell is the clear cut horse, right? Like I think he is the workhorse for this team to an extent. Like he's going to be the number one running back on the depth chart, no questions asked, right? But I think he's earned that number one spot, but I just think there's just too many guys behind him that are going to be taking snaps. So I think that workload for Brightwell is to just put up that many yards is just not quite there. Like he's certainly talented enough to put up those numbers if you give him that opportunity, but I don't think he's going to get enough snaps to do it. So I'm going to take the under at 650 just because there's so many other good running backs behind him.
Yeah, I'm gonna go lower on that one too, just because the uncertainty so far when talking about the running backs, it doesn't seem like they're established yet, or they will in the near future of a clear cut like guy who gets a bulk of the carries every game. So I do think he's gonna I think he's gonna be the best running back in this group, but I say slightly under on that one.
Yeah, well, that is where we are going to end things.